Today I'm going to be talking about development bootcamps and whether or not they're worth the hassle. So in this video I'll be talking about the general structure of bootcamps, the work, the job opportunity, and also some of the pros and cons of all of that. Also, if you've clicked on this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and follow your girl. I completed a software development bootcamp which was supposed to train us up in all things software development and give us a specialization of Java. We also did a bit of Python in that bootcamp, but I'm going to get into all of that later. Let me get into the reasons of why I did the bootcamp, because I think the reasons are usually very important if you're looking to do a bootcamp and what you want to get out from it. As a lot of people say, bootcamps, they're not substitutes for computer science degrees. They're not mini degrees condensed into 6 weeks or 3 months. No. But they are very useful tools for people who want to become developers, people who want to get their feet wet in terms of practicing coding or trying it out. I was looking for my bootcamp because I had done some solo programming by myself. I really enjoyed that. And I followed like a few websites as well, such as Code Academy, and I actually really enjoyed learning on the websites. However, I did notice I started to become a little less consistent than I should have been after a couple of months. That's where I got into looking for the bootcamp, because I was thinking, okay, cool, bootcamp, that's going to keep me on track and get me learning. I mean, it has bootcamp in the name, so. In terms of digital skills, there are quite a few bootcamps out there, whether or not you want to become a data analyst, cybersecurity, and a cloud engineer. In terms of bootcamps, it's also important to check whether or not they are free bootcamps or paid. So, software development bootcamps, what are they? Software development bootcamps are non-degree programs that help learners come up to speed with all things development, general tech skills, and generally also a specialization in some language or the other. I found that studying by myself was great, but it became a bit challenging when it came to building up a structure of learning. Development is so broad, it's so wide, there's so many things to learn, there's so many things to do. So I really wanted to narrow that down. I also like the opportunity at the end bootcamps give you to find a job. Applying for the bootcamp was not very difficult at all. You sign up your name, details, contact, area. Some bootcamps can be area specific, so always make sure you check the terms and conditions of that bootcamp. Some bootcamps are still online, which I actually really liked because it gave me a bit of flexibility around my day. Other bootcamps are not, but that's also fine because you're going to be in there hands-on with a tutor, which is going to help you a lot. So after you apply to a bootcamp, the usual structure is for them to give you a little test and an interview to see whether or not you would be up to it. So the test came first. I had to do 2 tests for the bootcamp that I was joining. One was a critical reasoning test and the other one was a maths test. The maths one, I was scared that there was going to be loads of questions that was going to be out of my depth. It wasn't too hard. I would definitely say it stuck around GCSE level, GCSE to A level. It wasn't anything too difficult. Basic questions. Don't get in your head. That's all I will say. Don't get in your head, because the math questions aren't there to psych you out. They're just there to make sure that you have arithmetic skills. The critical reasoning test speaks for itself. It was, again, for me it felt easy because the questions, critical reasoning, as long as you have good critical functions and you can reason well, you should pass that test too. So after I did the test and passed it, I was then invited for an interview by one of the recruiters. I think it was a half-an-hour interview. He asked my reasons for joining the bootcamp, whether or not I had any previous knowledge, and a few other questions to see whether I was qualified and eligible to join that particular bootcamp. It was just a bit of a get to know me. After that, there was a short little break and the bootcamp started. My days were quite full because I was working part-time but also doing the bootcamp full-time. But it did give me the structure I needed. There was a lot of practice, work. The syllabus that you follow is very clear. You have professional skills in there, you have some networking, you have all kinds of topics that you'll go through over the course of that bootcamp. They split this syllabus into the 6 weeks that we had. The first 2 weeks a lot of just like basic learning. What I did, like from day one, we were coding. So my bootcamp was entirely online. We were taught by a single instructor for the first couple weeks, then switched to a professional skills instructor, and then finally finished off with the Java specialist instructor. What's good about that is that you're getting 3 different perspectives, 2 different developers' perspectives, and a professional skills perspective. This is very useful. Do not sleep on professional skills. To get into how I wrote my CV for a developer role was challenging, to say the least. You need to change a lot of things. It is not like the standard CV, or it's not like a general CV that you could give to almost any workplace. It needs to be specifically tailored, if not for the role that you want, but generally for the language that you would like to work in, or the particular area of development you like to focus on. Often one CV can't cover that, so you may find yourself having multiple CVs as a developer, and that's normal. As part of my bootcamp as well, we also had a cloud exam and cloud learning, which really helped to train me up in cloud computing, something that I had 0 experience with before. It was something great to add onto my CV. But it is a nice bonus to have, and even just understanding that knowledge makes a lot of my developer conversations go smoothly. And generally, anything with cloud certification is a plus. This cloud exam took place in the middle of our learning, which was a lot because we had to study quite a bit for it, as the exam was taken with the provider itself, not the actual bootcamp. But it was nothing that we couldn't handle with the learning that we were doing day to day. It was a bit stressful when you're working as well, but doable. So in the last few weeks of the bootcamp, this is when we were properly studying in depth our specialization. We were coming up to an exam that they had told us about from the start of the bootcamp. I was quite nervous because we had gone through a lot of information, and you have all of that information swelling in your head, and you now need to translate that into an application, which I was shitting myself, I won't lie. I'd seen the tutor run a lot of programs, I'd see him do a lot of code, build up the databases, but it was a lot different doing it yourself. Fortunately, I did the exam and passed, which tells you that my bootcamp really did provide what they said they were going to provide, and that was development knowledge. The exam will challenge you to what you have learned in the bootcamp. I'm sure there may be some terrible bootcamps out there that kind of throw you in the deep end, but generally what you have learned will guide you through whatever final exam or final project you have to do. After the end of the bootcamp, then the job hunting takes place. This was actually a bombardment of emails from the job specialists at the bootcamp, very insistent on a lot of the jobs that they had. There were government jobs there were private companies, all kinds of sectors, different levels of learning, because in the bootcamp itself we had people who had been developers in the past. A lot of people were able to secure the development roles that they wanted. In 3 months you go from unable to get a job anywhere to we have a fairly decent option of jobs. So now to go through some of the pros and cons that I found with the bootcamp. I'm going to start with the cons. One of the cons that I find with bootcamp is that it's short. Once you've lost that structure, it's kind of disappointing because you now have all this information in your head and it was only given to you in a very short amount of time, meaning that you need to go over a lot. I would say that I spent 2 months afterwards really working on the information that I was given in the bootcamp. But what technically does come under a pro is that my bootcamp has actually given me a year's access to their website that held a lot of information and a lot of different courses. You need to be very quick. Some turnaround learning, it's within that few hours that you need to learn it, because on the next day of the bootcamp they're on a completely different topic and they will not be going back over it. Fortunately, my first tutor, she tended to go back over the lessons that we did the next day, which was very helpful because she would have like a shortened version of the notes in the morning. Talking of tutors though, one other con is no one-to-one learning with your tutor. If you're in an online bootcamp or virtual bootcamp, it's very hard to connect with your tutor personally and be like, hey, I struggled with this little bit, which I found actually a little bit helpful because I was now forced to confront some of the issues that I had with programs or software on my own. But I would definitely say I would have loved to have like a day or two a week with a tutor just to go over the learning that we've done and said, have I done this right, or have I run this program correctly? Yeah, that's one thing I didn't like. So this next con is not really a con, but it's a con to people who aren't looking to try too hard. It is challenging. These bootcamps are quite difficult, and the final project was a lot to do. On a day-to-day basis, there was a lot of information being taken in, and I would often be working till late in the night after the bootcamp had finished. So my bootcamp was from like 9 to 4. The obvious, you cannot substitute a whole degree, 3 years, 4 years, into 3 months of learning. And if that is what you're going there for, you're not going to get it. It's impossible. You will learn how to become a specific developer in the way they want to train you up in, or you will have the basic tools to become that person, but you will not be able to say, hey, I'm a computer scientist. There's a lot of learning that goes into a software programming degree or a computer science degree that you will not get on the bootcamp, and you can't be expected to. So definitely go in there with a mind of you just want to soak in whatever development knowledge they can give you. That's not really a con. Obviously people aren't going there for degree, but it is a little bit of a con if you're going there expecting to learn this vast world of knowledge. You're not going to have actually covered that much. Now onto the pros. One of the pros I would definitely say is that I was able to learn soft skills that is covering the professional skills I was talking about earlier, and generally like changing up my demeanor and CV to match what I wanted to be. You are able to cover a lot of theory in terms of the language that you are specifically studying and the best practices for being a developer. Being able to specialize in a language was very great, because I know there's some bootcamps out there that don't quite settle down on what language they're studying. You want to be focused on something, because that way you can come out of it and search straight for that job. It doesn't really matter what programming language you learn, as long as you are doing an in-depth study of at least one of them. So being able to do a marked exam was definitely a world of help, because you can look at the mistakes that you've made, you get feedback from the tutor. The project, amazing. You can learn how to develop all day long, but you can sometimes be developing projects that will never take place in the world of work, or companies may see it and be like, this is all right, it shows development skills, but not really the skills we were looking for. I would say the project that we finished off our bootcamp with definitely helped me to speak to jobs and kind of say something in my interview like, well, I created this program. I find intensive bootcamps very much a pro. The more intense it is, the more you're going to learn, the more information you're going to have to review later on. Basically, the more qualified you're going to feel. I understand all the learning in the world can't qualify someone for an actual job sometimes, but isn't it great to know that at least you've got the knowledge for it, or you've done a lot of learning towards it? So the structure of the bootcamp definitely is a pro for me. It's clear to see what I learned and when I learned it. But like I said, you will get bombarded with jobs by your bootcamp, and that's fantastic. That is what you want. You don't want to feel like you've done a bootcamp just to get to the end of it and like, oh my god, I know nothing, I have no opportunity. Hopefully your bootcamp should cover that and have partners that are raring to go for newly qualified bootcampers. If you're a self-learner, sometimes it's a bit challenging to go and do these things yourself, especially soft skills, professional skills, changing your CV to match what an employer would want. Obviously, everything on your CV is true. Those are all things that you get from a bootcamp, and even those connections to employers are things that you can receive from a bootcamp too. So there are benefits in there for self-learners. So to finish this video, I would say that yes, bootcamps are definitely worth it, even for people who were changing from non-STEM degrees to people who had been on computer science degrees. It gives you that little bit of programming knowledge that you need to at least get yourself in the world of work, and newly graduates and non-graduates need that alike. Well, the light on my camera just died, so we're gonna have to finish the video off like this. So overall, bootcamps are worth it. Whether you are a newly graduate, someone who's returning to coding after a really long break, new to coding in general, or you've learned just a little bit, there's a lot of discussion about whether paid bootcamps are better than non-paid bootcamps, but I would definitely say that that is something for you to decide. At the end of the day, the bootcamp is there to give you what it wanted. If you're taking a 4-week bootcamp over a 6-week bootcamp, over an 8-week bootcamp, over a 10-week bootcamp, you can understand why you may not have as much knowledge as someone else who did like a 6-month bootcamp. All I can say is definitely research the bootcamp you want to join before you join it. Check the reviews, check that they're legit. If they're asking for a really large amount of money, maybe it's not worth it. Maybe it's worth continuing with self-learning and going for certificates. Go for it, because you will not regret the learning. People who are really trying to be out there and be programmers, I feel like there's very little learning that you can turn your nose up at.